Hi guys, in this video I'm going to talk about the for each loop, and it's a really powerful loop and it's used very frequently. And what it does is it allows you to loop through Microsoft Excel objects, and that's very important. And remember, we talked about the guy at Microsoft in another video who created Microsoft Excel, and an object is an instance of a class, right? And a class is just a blueprint for an object. So objects are like a worksheet or a workbook or a cell or a range or the application, or there's an object for borders, or or not borders, but comments are an object. There's a million objects, right? So what we're going to do now is loop through Microsoft Excel VBA objects. And the way to do that is with a for each loop. That's what it's for, to loop through Microsoft Excel objects. So let's look at some real world examples. So I have a range here from A1 to A4, and I highlighted it in yellow. And what I want to do is loop through this range, find the cells that have 5 in it, and then highlight that background color. So I could use like a do while loop to go through row and column, but it's easier to just go like this: sub for each, and then do for each C in range A1 to E4, next C. So this, instead of doing do while loops with other variables and things, this is faster. It will loop through a range object. So this range A1 to E4 is made up of smaller ranges. This is a range, this cell is a range, this cell is a range. These are all little ranges here. These cells are ranges. And you can see that because if I do this, if I do C dot interior color interior dot color index is equal to 3, but let me do something. I'll do a if C dot value is equal to 5, then end if. So now I have a logic that says, okay, I'm going to loop through this range, and I want to turn the background color, or the interior color, to that color index 3. So if I run this, you'll see I just ran it, and it looped through the whole range, and it turned these two cells red because their value is 5. But let's step through this and see exactly what's happening here. If I put a watch on this variable C, you're going to see that this C, so this C could be anything you want. This could be any name you want to give it. You're giving it a name for some for a placeholder in place of a Microsoft Excel object. And what type of object is it? Well, it's going to be a range object. And to see that, let's step through it. So right now in memory, C is of type nothing. It's actually type variant, but it's empty. As soon as I execute this, because of this line, it's saying for each C in range, it knows by this statement for each that it is going to loop through objects, and it needs a type of object. So in memory, you could see that it says C is of type object range. So VBA automatically knows that whatever you put here is going to be of type range. So now you're going to be looping through range objects. Do you understand that? That whatever you put over here is going to be the type of object that you are going to be looping through. In our case, it's going to be type range, and we were able to even furthermore specify the exact range. But it's a range object. So VBA knows that it's a range object, and that you could specify the ranges, the exact range. Okay? So now you're working with a range object, and to access the properties and methods of that range object, you want to write the range object and use the dot operator to access the properties and methods like we've saw in other videos, and you could then assign things to that property or call methods, and that's what you're doing here. You're going C is a range object dot value, that's the property. If that property is 5, then set the color index equal to 3. If not, then nothing will happen. And then it's going to loop through the next cell. So let me just do something. C dot. I'm just going to see if this is a message box. So let's do this. So there you go. I put a message box here just to show you that, you know, that C is a range object and it has an address and it's B2. If I do it again, it's going to pop up C4 because C4, here's C4 and there was B2, and you could see that because I'm inside this if statement, that's what's happening. C.address. So C is a range object. Remember, range, you could access the properties of a range object or methods using this dot operator, and it has a address property, and I just put that in a message box. Okay, so that's all a for each loop is. It's looping through Microsoft Excel VBA objects, and this is the type of object, and this can be anything you want. You know, the name can be anything you want, but after you execute that line, this variable is of type whatever's on this side. So in our case, C is of type range. It's a range object. Okay, so that's cool because now we know we could loop through Microsoft Excel objects. Now let's look at a better example. So let's say I want to loop through. Here I have 3 workbooks, and within each workbook I have 3 sheets, right? Well, let's say I want to loop through every workbook. Loop through workbook and worksheet. So I want to loop through a workbook and the worksheets of that workbook. So how would I do that? So you could do that like this, again with a for each loop. For each WB in workbooks, I want to activate that workbook, and then I want to go to the next workbook. And remember, WB could be anything you want to name it, and this is the objects you want to loop through. So these objects are a collection, and a collection is just a group of objects of the same type. And I'll put up a video on that later. But all it is, these are a group of objects, and you're going to loop through the objects. So you need like a placeholder, right? So you could name a placeholder, and in our case I named it WB. Then I could access the properties and methods, and I think activate is a method that will activate a workbook, meaning it will make that workbook active. Now once that workbook is active, WB, I want to loop through the worksheets of that workbook. So for each WS in worksheets, next WS. So now look what's happening. I have all these workbooks open. I have 3 workbooks open. I'm going to loop through each one of them, and in each one of them I'm going to loop through their worksheets. And what am I going to do here? I'm going to do cells 1.1 dot value is equal to let's just say hello. Okay, so now if I run this, let me just run it. Oh, activate, sorry. When I run this, there you go. So now every workbook here, if I go into any of them, all the worksheets in cell 1.1, they're going to have oops, not this one. That is because I didn't select it, and that I should do that. So this is a good error. The reason that every one of them didn't have is because I didn't select the worksheet. So I have to select the worksheet. So for each worksheet, you want to select it and then put the value in. If you don't select it, then whatever worksheet it's on is going to be assigned hello. But we want to do it to every worksheet. So that's important. I should have written that in there, that you have to select it. So let me run it again. Okay, so now definitely on every worksheet, it selected every worksheet in every workbook and put hello in the cell. There you go. Hello is in every cell. And if I go to another workbook, here we go to this workbook, you'll see hello is in this cell and hello is in that cell. So this is cool now because now if people in your office or wherever, if people are using 10, 15 workbooks and they're going in there and doing the same thing in 15 different worksheets, now you're able to write a macro that can loop through all these workbooks and loop through the worksheets within every workbook and do stuff, and that's cool. So here, when I say do stuff, all I did was put hello there, but in reality what you want to do is something like this. You want to put like sub hi, and you want to move whatever it is you're doing into this other subroutine, and then you want to call that using the call keyword, call hi. So this hi is a subroutine that I just created down here, and this call is just calling it, saying go do this, go do this macro. And let me get a little bit more specific down here. I'm going to put cells11.value equals, I'll just put this is a call to a macro in, and now I'm going to put active workbook dot name and sheet and active sheet active sheet dot name. So now we're going to get more specific. In cell 1-1 we're going to write this thing, but notice how I sort of separated the what I want to do on every sheet with the rest of this loop, right? So let's run this now, and there you go. So here, this is a call to macro in for each 3.xlm sheet cars, and there's sheet cars. And there you go. This is a call to macro in for each 3.xlm sheet books, and there's sheet books. And the same thing for company. And then if you go to a different workbook, like for each one, here it is. This is a call to macro in for each one xlm-sheet cats, and there's cats worksheet, and there's the dogs. So you can see this is really powerful now. So that's what I wanted to show you. And remember, to see to get the working macro, go to excelvbasequel.com. You could watch more videos, you could download the code, and if you have questions, email me at this email address, excelvbasequel@gmail.com. If you want to know how to do stuff or you have questions about VBA, email and I'll get back to you. Thanks.